But anyways, let's move on now into the second part of our mock draft. We're going 11 through 20. We're picking 3 teams that we're going to talk about and the players that they picked, and then we'll discuss that. But Ricky, give us your 11 through 20.
Well, going to start off at 11, the Charlotte Hornets, going with Troy Brown, forward from Oregon. Number 12, the Clippers, because of that Blake Griffin trade, going to go at Wendell Carter Jr., the forward center from Duke. 13, the Jazz, going Robert Williams, the forward center from Texas A&M. Then the Clippers, they're back again. Hope you didn't miss them. They're going Colin Sexton, the point guard from Alabama. Then the Suns via the Heat, going Chimezi Matu, my favorite name to say in this whole draft, forward center from USC. The Suns via the Heat, then going with, I just said that one. The Bulls then via the Pelicans, going with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Hope I said that one right.
You did.
The guard from Kentucky. Then the 76ers going with Zana Musa, the small forward from overseas. Trailblazers going Lonnie Walker, guard from Miami. Nuggets going Hamidou Diallo from Kentucky. And the T-Wolves via the Thunder going with Chandler Hutchinson, the forward from Boise State.
Dave, give us your 11 through 20.
All right, my 11 through 20. I have the Hornets taking Mo Bamba, who weirdly fell down to the spot. I mean, probably won't happen, but it happened in my mock, so deal with it. At number 12, I got the Clippers going Wendell Carter Jr. Again, we talked, potentially one of the best players in this draft who are big, but Bagley's in front of him, so is what it is. I've got the Jazz going at number 13 with Robert Williams, the forward center from Texas. Solid player, just not much there. The Clippers, 14, going, I can't say his name, Shai.
Yep. Yeah, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Kentucky. At number 15, I've got the Suns going with Lonnie Walker. At 16, I've got the Bulls going with Shake Milton because we don't have a point guard. Number 17, I've got the 76ers going with Troy Brown. Add another wing because why not? At number 18, I've got the Trailblazers going with Zan and Musa. Much needed shooting on the outside. Number 19, I've got the Nuggets going with Keita Bates-Diop. And number 20, I've got the T-Wolves going with Kyrie Thomas.
And my 11 through 20, we have the Hornets taking Kevin Knox out of Kentucky. At 12, the Clippers taking Colin Sexton from Alabama. 13, the Utah Jazz taking Troy Brown from Oregon. Number 14, the Clippers taking Robert Williams out of Texas A&M. 15, the Suns taking Zanan Musa from overseas. 16, the Bulls taking Hamidou Diallo from Kentucky. 17, the 76ers taking Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Diallo's backcourt mate over at Kentucky. 18, Trailblazers going with Shake Milton from SMU. 19, Nuggets going with Chandler Hutchinson from Boise State. And number 20, T-Wolves going with Anthony Simmons, the guard, the fifth-year senior in high school at IMG Academy. Let's jump in first. We'll talk about the Clippers since they do have 2 picks in this block at 12 and 14. I had them going Colin Sexton and Robert Williams. Ricky had them going Wendell Carter Jr. and Colin Sexton. And Dave had him going with Wendell Carter and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a mix of both big men and guards. Ricky and I ended up actually having the same, we didn't have the same combo of going. You had Robert Williams going 13. But we all 3 had a guard and forward combo. Mm-hmm. What do you think with the Clippers, especially with this Blake trade that made this possible? What do you think the direction for this team should be going in the draft? Should it be specific player types or should it just be BPA?
Well, it's got to be BPA. Here's the thing. I think BPA, but what plays into their picks most at this point is what are the Jazz going to do? Because if the Jazz are going to go with a point guard, I'm going to go Colin Sexton with that first pick. However, if I feel like the Jazz are going to go with a big man, I'm going to take the big man that I want. I'm not going to let the Jazz indicate which one I get stuck with. So that's why with me, I looked at it and I was like, personally, I'm like, you know what? The Jazz could go point guard, but Ricky Rubio will still be there. They'll probably go with a big. If I'm the Clippers, I'm going with the big that I want. Jazz take their big, and then I get Colin Sexton with my second pick.
Yeah, the fact that Colin Sexton is that low is kind of ridiculous.
The bottom of my range.
I would say that Colin Sexton doesn't go past him at that 12 spot because I look at Colin Sexton, and yes, you might think the Jazz might not take him, but and again, you have Wendell Carter going there, but I would rather take Colin Sexton over Wendell Carter if I'm the Clippers because you look at them, they do have Milos, they do have Pat Bev, but Colin Sexton is going to be there and possibly could be there for the next 15 years. Colin Sexton, in my mind, could be a franchise point guard in my mind. And the fact that he's at 12 is kind of shocking, but no team above them needs guards as badly. It needs a guard like the Clippers could use a guard. I mean, what do you think? I mean, I don't think that
that's
the Knicks
I'm the only one who had Colin Sexton going up above.
Yeah, I don't think the Knicks technically need a guard.
I think it's between the Cavs and the Knicks are the likely takers. The Sixers could if they don't believe in Fultz coming back healthy, and that's totally. I think there's 3 teams. I think that's just my opinion.
The Hornets could.
I don't think the Hornets will because
They
I
could,
thought
though,
about them. I thought about them just because of the Kemba stuff.
Kemba's well, not just the Kemba trade, but like you look at the rest, it's like Michael Carter-Williams is up after the year.
Yeah, because you want to re-sign that guy.
Exactly.
No, but hold on.
And Stone's up at the end of the year.
You're not going to take Colin Sexton to back up Kemba Walker.
No, but it's on top of the trade stuff. Also, it's we don't know what our point guards are going to even look like. That's why I almost had him go there, but the Clippers is just too good to pass up.
I think if he goes, it's going to be the Hornets, the Clippers, Cavs, or possibly the Suns, but the Suns won't be at 1. That's the problem. I think the Suns is the best fit for them, but the Suns are at 1, and they're not going to take. They shouldn't take Colin Sexton number 1. So that's the thing is, and if he hits 15, Suns fans should be throwing a party in Phoenix because you're getting DeAndre Ayton in my mind, and then Colin Sexton. So I think.
And that ran into what we talked about in the first one of like, do you go with Luka over DeAndre because of what is going to be this low? And the Clippers, 14, Colin doesn't go past them.
Yeah, for teams with 2 picks, it really does take a solid strategy and some predictions on other teams' behalfs to really fill out your draft picks. So I think that, you're 100% right. If Colin Sexton's there at 12, I would 100% not pass him up, Sean. I think there's no better point guard. Like, the dip after Sexton to the next available point guard is massive. So I'm of the kind of I take Colin Sexton 100%, and I take whichever's better who's left as far as my big man going forward.
One question I'm thinking, what do you guys, now that we're sitting here all-star break of the season, what do you guys think Milos is going to be for this Clipper team? Because I look at the point guards they have. You have Milos, which I'm unsure, that's why I'm asking. But then you got Pat Bev, which he even sees himself, they said on the Will Kane shows, I'm just an A-plus role player. I'm not that starting point guard.
Yeah.
So is Milos going to be that starting point guard?
He's a 31, 32-year-old who's been injured, and we really haven't seen enough out of him. If I'm Jerry West, I'm not banking my whole team on Milos being on my starting point guard when Colin Sexton being 19 could step in and be my starting point guard for the next 15 years. So I mean that's something where I wouldn't look at Milos being the decider there. I'm looking at Los Angeles. You're trying to get younger. You're trying to get players with potential. Colin Sexton is there. Doesn't matter who else is around. Colin Sexton's not only the best player available, he also has the highest ceiling. I'm going with Colin Sexton if he's there. I think the Hornets can definitely make a play for him, and I think it really depends on the Kemba situation. They're going to be trading Kemba. They're taking Colin Sexton. If Colin Sexton's taken, they're going to be trading Kemba Walker.
Right.
Like that's my thought process. And with the Clippers, Colin Sexton is too good to pass up. And that's why at 12, there's no way I'm letting him possibly slip to 13 because that possibility means that a team could possibly trade up and snatch him right away from you. You look at the Bulls. If the Bulls are there, they might use as much firepower as they possibly can to jump him up to that 13 because they want Colin Sexton. Like if Colin Sexton starts to fall outside of that top 10, I feel like teams are going to start trading up and try to get him.
I almost had him go 8 to the Bulls, but I was like, nah, I can't do it. I can't have the Bulls take a point guard knowing that it's like that's not the true need that we had.
Yeah.
With especially Mikal Bridges there. But I like the trade thing that you brought up because the team that I'll just bring them into it is the Jazz sandwiched right in between them. The reason why I'm thinking that they wouldn't go and take a Sexton and steal it away is because you got Ricky Rubio for one more year, and I know what you're probably thinking. Well, we're not going to re-sign him. I don't even want Ricky Rubio on this team. Yeah, but if you let him go, what did we talk about last year's draft? Don Mitchell, he's a 2, but could be transitioned over into that point guard. So for me, the Jazz, if Ricky Rubio getting rid of him is in your plan, Donovan Mitchell is probably going to become your main ball handler and your main point guard.
Well, and one thing too, I mean, in your mock, if Colin Sexton is there, I feel like you could take him and you could just bounce back and forth from Donovan Mitchell and Colin Sexton being your ball handler. I mean, those guys. I mean, Donovan Mitchell has proven that he could be a secondary ball handler, and that would just allow Donovan Mitchell to work off ball. So I feel like you could possibly pair those two together, and those two. Back there as your 1 and 2 would be a disgusting dynamic duo back there. So I mean, that's the one thing with the Jazz is the Jazz. It's something where you don't really you have a star in Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert is one of the best down low players in the NBA. But I don't think Gobert's a star. I think if you get Colin Sexton, you could possibly pair him with a star. So that's one thing where if I'm looking at the Jazz, I don't have them going Colin Sexton because Colin Sexton's already gone. But if Colin Sexton's available for the Jazz, I would take him.
No, I can't disagree with that, and that's why, like, if I'm them, and the way my mock works out is the Clippers end up taking the best big man available, which would be Wendell Carter, and then the Jazz, again, we're going big, and Robert Williams. And I think that for them, it fills a need, and I'm not totally sold on we're done with Ricky Rubio. I think he's played pretty well since coming to the Jazz. I think they still want to see what they have with Exum. I think that he's still young, he still has potential, and I think that, you know, if given time, could be their guy going forward.
Mm-hmm. And I think that with the Jazz, again, and the Clippers too, I feel like the Clippers and Jazz both have pieces there. I mean, you look at the Clippers, they're bringing back Lou Will. You look at the Jazz, they're going to have Donovan Mitchell, they're going to have Rudy Gobert. But it's still something where these teams, they might be making the playoffs. They might be, you know, Jazz right now on an 11-game win streak. Clippers are very close. It's just something where you're still trying to recover from losing a Gordon Hayward or a Blake Griffin and Chris Paul. And I think it's something where you just have to take those next steps. And by taking those next steps, that means bringing in new talent, fresh blood. The Jazz have done that with Donovan Mitchell. They're going to need to do it again here. And the Clippers, they're going to need to bring in fresh blood because we don't know the situation with DeAndre Jordan, especially after this year, with his contract situation. Lou Will obviously be there. Pat Bev will obviously be there. But those guys have never been 1s and 2s in their careers. You need to start taking guys who are 1s and 2s. And that's why if I'm looking at the Clippers, you know, taking a Wendell Carter for both of you guys, I think that's great. Obviously, I'm taking Colin Sexton just because I think he's going to be a star. Colin Sexton's already off your board. But I think you need to start taking those steps to getting stars. I don't know if Wendell Carter's that guy, but, you know, obviously Dave already has Colin Sexton gone.
Yeah, Ricky, I'm just a little worried about the Jazz sniping Colin Sexton.
And that's the thing where, like you brought up, the Clippers could make the playoffs. If the Clippers make the playoffs and the Suns get in between, the Bulls get in between, then it becomes, all right, let's take Colin Sexton with that first one. Because I don't think the Pistons are... Yeah, the Pistons could make a run. Like, you got Blake and Drummond playing well out there. But I still think that Pistons pick is going to be enough to get them Sexton, hopefully, for the Clippers. And if the Clippers actually make the playoffs, then that could flip it to where, okay, let's take a guard before we look at a big man because they need a power forward now after giving Blake away. They only have one on the roster.
Fingers crossed that both teams, the Pistons themselves, don't continue to do well for the rest of this year. There's 26 games left.
Montrezl Harrell is the only... Harold's the only power forward they have. He's an RFA at the end of the year. And then you got DeAndre and Boban are your two centers.
So you're playing Tobias and Danilo both at the 3-4. So, I mean, that's honestly the lap. And the thing is, for moving Blake, they're still doing really well. So they have to be a little bit curious, a little bit cautious about that. And, you know, if they end up making that push or if they end up shutting somebody down towards the end of the year, like, I know it's not a popular move.
Shut Lou Will down?
But if it, I mean, Pat Bev's already done for the season. Yeah. So you could do something where, you know, nobody's going to be happy, but if you set yourself up for a future pick in someone like Colin Sexton, I don't think at the end of the day you look back and be like, man, they were really assholes for the last 10 games where they didn't play their starters.
Yeah, and let's move on now away from the Clippers and let's go to the Jazz just because we brought them up a bit. You both have him going Robert Williams, the forward center out of Texas A&M, going to the Jazz. How do you think he fits with Rudy Gobert? Because, you know, obviously Derek Favors isn't a first-year lockdown thing for the Jazz from here on out. And Robert Williams is a guy that I don't see a lot of offensive potential with, and they already have a guy in Rudy Gobert that's already bogging down that offense. I mean, Rudy Gobert isn't an offensive machine out there. He's known for his defense. Right. Robert Williams is going to be a guy that fits a similar role. Do you feel like that's going to be a problem if you pair Williams and Gobert together down low?
You know, I don't see it as a huge problem because the thing that I look at is even if you pair it to where Rudy's playing here, and then when Rudy comes off, okay, Robert Williams is out there. I look at what Robert Williams brings to a team, always hustles for rebounds, has the wingspan, and to me, the thing I like is, like I just said, the hustles for rebound, having that motor to kind of, you know what, that ball's going to go out of bounds. I'm not waiting for the lucky bounce. I'm going to go and chase it down so that we can get the ball, I can get it to my point guard, and then we can push the ball down the court.
Yeah, for me, what I see is the ability to not need to pay Derek Favors big money. Like, I don't think he's going to get huge money. I think even if they give him like a 2-year, like anything, not a 4-year contract, like you have your transitional guy now, and that's what I'm thinking is you have a guy when Gobert's not on the floor, you still have a defensive presence down low. When Favors is off the floor, you have an even better defensive presence. Like, I just think that's the next step going forward because I think Derek Favors isn't going to be the long-term answer that matches up with the time frame they're thinking building this team around Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I think just looking at the Jazz, I think they're going to need to give some help to Donovan Mitchell on the outside. And right now, I think that they need someone who can score for them. And Robert Williams is not a guy that I think can do that. I look at him, if for 14, he's going to be able to fill some of the defensive stuff that DeAndre Jordan's going to bring away from that team. I feel like he's going to be a nice pick, and you're not going to have to rely on him offensively because you have Tobias Harris, Danilo Gallinari, Colin Sexton. You're going to have players that can score offensively. And then with the Jazz, you bring in a guy like Troy Brown because, yes, you have jumping Joe Ingles out there, Dave's favorite player. You have Donovan Mitchell. Those guys can score, but in the NBA, you need wings. You need guys who can be versatile. You need guys who can play defense on the outside. And you can never get enough of those guys. And that's why I think Troy Brown would be the guy where at that power forward position, I don't see a guy that can really be a scorer for them from here on out. So I would rather go with a wing position and possibly address that power forward situation in free agency or through a trade. So that's something where I don't really see a fit power forward-wise for the Jazz.
Well, I mean, that's a big thing where it's like you look at Dave, I'm looking at your mock draft, you still got Troy Brown there. With me, I don't. I had him go to the Hornets. So it's like with me, if I'm going that route, which is not wrong, you could go that route. The next two is Zana Musa, where it's like, okay, I don't know if I'm in love with that for the Jazz, or a guy where it says guard, but I believe he can play the three as well with Hamidou Diallo, which I'm not high on that either because of the development project. Exactly,
he's athletic enough. It's just what basketball skills can he bring is the question. Yeah. For me, I looked at this.
The kid can be like a track star and can do everything like in a gym, but I don't think he could play basketball. That's the problem with Diallo.
We've seen people fall in love with the build before and people figure out basketball later on.
There's a reason why he's in my 11 through 20. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I am worried about Hamidou Diallo because he can't play basketball.
For me, the thing with this position was they're locked down in contracts in their wings right now. They've got Thabo, they've got Jay Crowder, they've got Joe Ingles. Joe's there through 2020. Jay's there through 2019, and Thabo's there for 2018. Like, you have guys who are all veteran players, who all have playoff experience, and who all are decent shooters and defenders. So I'm going, we're vet heavy at the wing. I feel good about that. But
so
you know what we
why
don't
not inject some youth in there?
Well, you picked up Royce O'Neal last year. I don't expect him to be the future, but I don't think that I think that you want to have the veteran position on the wing, and I'm very comfortable with what they have. I look at that power forward position, and I don't love Derek Favors. I don't love anything they have on this roster. I think that that's something they can address in free agency potentially this year. But at the same time, if you can go out and get someone who can go between the 4 and the 5 and consistently give you a defensive presence on that floor, regardless of Rudy Gobert, because if Rudy's out for some games, again, you have that guy who can step in.
I don't know. Just with Robert Williams, I don't think there's enough offensively there that would help the Jazz. And I think I understand your point about having that veteran leadership, but
it's just the contracts too. I mean, you're tying yourself up with guys.
But Joe Ingles is making what, like $7 million a year?
14, 13, 12, and then 11.
Well, Jay's making 6 to 7 a year. Jay's got a really affordable contract, so that's something that's really not bogging them down. And that's one thing too with having so many. If you have 3 wings out there, you're going to be able to consistently have consistent players out there that can do the same thing out there, and you're not going to have a dip in talent. And that's something where Troy Brown is also going to bring youthful energy, and he's going to bring something different than Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles has been a great outside shooter, but Troy Brown also is more athletic than Joe Ingles. He can possibly become a better defender than Joe Ingles. And you look at Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder was great in Boston.
He finds himself again.
He's been okay in Utah, but I mean, again, it's been such a small sample size. It's something where those two guys don't bring the same exact stuff that Troy Brown does. They play the same position, but they don't bring the same stuff that Troy Brown does. And that's the reason why I think the Jazz would go with Troy Brown, because there's not that power forward out there in my mind that fits well with that Jazz team. I think you need someone, because Derek Favors, I know you don't love him, but I think you need an offensive player with Gobert. Favors has shown that he can play offensively at points in his career. And I don't think there's a guy out there that's worth the pick for the Jazz at that spot. Like, the only player that I would think of is like maybe Jonte Porter, but Jonte Porter would be a reach.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing, is I wouldn't go with.
No, I respect that. Totally respect it.
But the last team we're going to talk about is the Portland Trailblazers at 18. I haven't taken Shake Milton. You haven't taken Ricky, Lonnie Walker, and Dave hasn't taken Zana Musa. Dave picked this one. Dave, is it just because you want to talk about Zana?
A little bit, Zonin. A little bit, because I think the Trailblazers are one of those weird teams where they got stuck in cap hell, and they were really locked into players, and they had to ship around some contracts. And when I look at this team going forward, it's like, why haven't they been successful? what is holding this team back? And, last year it was the addition of Jusuf Nurkic, and we saw what his toughness brought. When he's on that court, it is night and day for this team. But then they ran to the issue of now all of a sudden we're lacking some shooting. Why? Our wing depth isn't great, and we're not getting a consistent performance out there. Zanamus is a guy who I think can come in, knock down shots for you, and make sure that you don't have that drop-off from going with Dame and CJ out there. And then when you go to that second unit, they always try to balance it so one of the two's out there, and they can never truly rest them both at the same time without a massive drop-off in their box score, pretty much. It's one of those things where I feel like small forward, easily addressable here with a guy with high upside, with a clean shot, and somebody who will definitely be there in this range.
Yeah, the one thing is that I just have Zan gone, so I can't take him. But you have him going as well. Before I'm going to the 76ers, Ricky. Yep. So we go with the guard spot with Shake Milton and Lonnie Walker. My thought process, and Ricky, you can let me know if it's the same thing, is just the fact that behind CJ and Dame, there's not a lot of depth there at that guard position for the Portland Trail Blazers. So I'm looking for a guy that defensively, Dame and CJ, they're great players, not the greatest defenders. So if you have the ability to bring in a Shake Milton who could be a defender, can also distribute the ball, to a guy like CJ or Dame if they want to work those two off ball, I feel like Shake Milton would be a perfect fit. But you're going with Lonnie Walker, a guy with a lot of potential. What was your reasoning for going Lonnie Walker in that spot over like a Shake Milton who's available?
When I look at the Trailblazers, the thing I think of is, like Dave said, they're in cap hell. But the thing that I really think of is they're a team because of having Dame locked down until 2021, having CJ locked down till 2021. They're a team that's probably going to be a playoff team for a while. They don't have to worry about, we're going to be in the lottery this year. No, they're going to be
a playoff team. But it's really what quality playoff team are you going to be.
And with me, I'm looking at it where it's sort of a kind of a BPA, but it's more of like a, hey, you know what? If this player and with his potential is where we think it is, this will end up being a BPA. It might not look BPA because, he has an injury. We haven't seen what we wanted to see out of him this year because of that injury. But when you look at him, he's a guy who, the percentage is low, but he can shoot the three. He's got the wingspan. He's young, and he can play defense. Developing that to be, even if it's the two behind CJ, then they can develop to where it's like, maybe we can have Dame and CJ off the court at the same time for a brief period and have someone not locked down, but someone hold their own on the court so that we don't lose a ton of points having our stars on the bench.
Well, one thing too, Lonnie, that he's not a finished basketball player by any route. People like him as a sleeper. He hasn't really shown a lot on the court in Miami. He's been injured as well. Started off the year with an injury. So we really don't know what we're getting out of a Lonnie Walker. The one thing with him is that if he has a really good combine and a really good end of the season, he could be a guy that possibly just won't be there for.
That's the issue with me. I have him going already. That's why I end up going with a wing there. And again, you're right. Its potential's all there, but this is a team that needs help sooner rather than later, like Ricky said, because they're competing in the playoffs year in and year out. So that's why I feel like if you add some additional scoring out there and they continue and they decide to pay out for Nurkic's extension going forward, I think this team is going to be a contender. It's just the West is so damn deep. They need to pull out some more tools.
We have 5 minutes left, just real quick. We have some players that are new to this even whole draft. we got Hutchinson from Boise State. We got Gilgeous-Alexander. We got who else is on there? Bates Diop, Kyrie Thomas. There's some new guys out there. Which guys are you excited about, Ricky?
Well, my new guy going to the Bulls, the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, to where
what do you like
this is the one where the Bulls. You remember when I said I almost had him go Colin Sexton with that 8th? Well, this is why I didn't, because hey, we can take a Mikal Bridges, get that guy who can be our point guard, but he doesn't have to be right away because we do have Chris Dunn there. We do have, not saying campaign, but we do have Jerian Grant who has been doing well for us.
Yeah, Gilgeous-Alexander can develop on your bench. I like that pick for the Bulls. But the one thing with me looking at the Bulls, I think go with Hamidou Diallo.
You just hate the Bulls.
I hate the Bulls.
That's what this draft said. He passed up both Bridges and gave us Diallo, who he doesn't think can play basketball.
Hamidou Diallo's got a lot of potential, guys. Like Dave said, he can do everything in the gym. He's a gym rat. So
I went for backup point guard because so sue me. I mean, I think Shake Milton becomes a.
we're not talking about the Bulls. I said, give me a player who's never been on the board.
Deal with it.
Shake Milton was on the board in 1.0.
I'll go with Keita Bates-Diop. It's a player who's been in the NCAA for a while. He is not a first-year player, and I respect that out of him.
Yeah, rising up. Ohio State's
grown his game
doing well this year.
He is leading Ohio State through their conference, and I think he is a good scorer. He is a good all-around player. He is not one guy who's just like. I think the problem is there's no wow factor. Like he has evolved his game over time, and yes, this year has been a jump from 9 to 19 points per game. But at the same time, it's more so about his usage than about what he brought to the game. So I think that consistent player, good shooter, and all around, I think it's really impressive what he's done in his college career.
I don't know if we have Ohio State fans out there. I mean, this is just me being an ass. So he's just Jared Sullinger.
Oh, fuck you. No, because he can shoot. Fuck it.
Jared Sullinger in China shooting threes. Anyways, the final player I want to mention is Boise State, Chandler Hutchinson. Not Hutchinson. I have that. Hutchison. Chandler Hutchison. He's a guy that is driving to the paint a lot. He's a guy that can get to the line as well, and he's shown at points, not really consistently, but that he could shoot three-pointer. There's a big drop-off, really, probably after the 14th pick. Then you're really going off of potential. So a guy with Hutchison, who throughout his career at Boise State has improved, gotten better. Could be a guy that could be a good role player for people down the line. Could possibly be like a Kyle Kuzma guy who we all slept on last year and really took.
Did we sleep on him?
I don't remember any of us mentioning Kyle Kuzma in any of our mock drafts.
I never brought up Kuz Daddy. Never, not once.
Did you bring up Kuzma?
I honestly can't remember last year.
I don't think any of us brought up Kuzma. So that's one thing where you look at Hutchison. Hutchison could be a guy that we would possibly never look at, and he's just a guy that could be a nice role player, and maybe he could be something more. But hey, this guy could be a good role player, and I think the Nuggets, with their situation with Willithrow Barton, Wilson Chandler, they need to get a small forward, and Hutchison can be a guy that can fill some of the same roles that Will Thrill and Wilson Chandler did. So those are the guys that we talked about in our 2.0.